Hello and welcome to our channel. Today, we're going to talk about a chilling murder that took place in a park, which left the entire community shaken. It's a story that will make you question the safety of public spaces. The park was bustling with activity on that fateful summer day. Children were playing on the swings, while couples were lounging on picnic blankets. The sun was shining bright, and there was a feeling of contentment in the air. But then, everything changed in an instant. Suddenly, a piercing scream broke the tranquility of the park, and everyone turned to see where the sound was coming from. A woman was lying on the ground, motionless, with blood surrounding her body. It was a horrifying sight that no one could have imagined would happen in such a peaceful setting. People rushed to the scene, trying to help the woman, but it was clear that she was already dead. Panic set in, and people began to flee the park, unsure of what was happening or who the perpetrator might be. The police arrived shortly after, and the park was immediately cordoned off as they began their investigation. The sense of shock and disbelief that followed the murder was palpable throughout the community. It was hard to believe that such a horrific event could happen in broad daylight in a place where people went to relax and enjoy themselves. The tragedy left many questioning their own safety and the safety of their loved ones in public spaces. One witness said he was walking his dog when I heard some strange noises coming from the bushes. I thought it was just some kids playing, but then I saw a man running away. When I went to check, I found the body of a woman. It was a horrific sight. The police immediately launched an investigation to find the killer. They interviewed witnesses and collected evidence from the crime scene. But the killer had left no clues behind, making it difficult for the police to find a suspect. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, but the killer remained at large. The community was on edge, and people were scared to go to the park. The police received several tips, but none of them led to an arrest. Finally, after months of hard work, the police got a breakthrough in the case. They found a DNA match that led them to the killer. It turned out that the killer was a man who had a history of violence and had been released from prison just a few months before the murder. The arrest and charging of the killer brought some measure of relief to the community. People felt that justice was finally being served, and that they could begin to heal and move on from the tragedy. However, the memory of the murder continued to haunt many individuals. People couldn't shake the thought that a killer had been among them, and that someone could commit such a heinous act in such a public space. Parents became more cautious when taking their children to the park, and the community as a whole became more vigilant about their surroundings. The trial of the killer was closely followed by the media and the community. It was a long and emotionally charged process, with witnesses testifying and evidence presented. The trial was a difficult time for the family of the victim, as they had to relive the pain and trauma of losing a loved one. Finally, the verdict was announced, and the killer was found guilty of murder. The community breathed a collective sigh of relief knowing that the perpetrator would be held accountable for their actions. However, the impact of the murder in the park continued to reverberate through the community long after the trial. It served as a reminder that despite the peaceful and serene appearance of public spaces, there could be danger lurking in the shadows. It also reminded people of the importance of looking out for one another, and taking steps to ensure their own safety and the safety of others in public spaces. On a sunny afternoon in the summer of 2019, a murder took place in a quiet park in a small town. The incident shocked the community and left many wondering who could have committed such a heinous crime. John Smith was a well-known and respected member of the community. He was a retired teacher who had spent his entire career in the local school district, and he was known for his kindness and dedication to his students. After retiring, John had taken up walking as a way to stay active and socialize with his neighbors. He often went to the park in the afternoons, where he would chat with other park-goers and enjoy the scenery. So, when news of his murder broke, it sent shockwaves through the community. People were horrified that such a senseless act of violence could happen in their peaceful town, and they rallied around John's family and friends in support. The police responded quickly to the scene, recognizing the gravity of the situation. They cordoned off the area and began combing the park for clues. They interviewed witnesses and collected evidence, hoping to find the perpetrator. Despite their best efforts, the investigation was slow going. There were no obvious suspects, and the evidence they found was inconclusive. But the police were determined to find the killer and bring them to justice. The murder of John Smith had a profound impact on the community. It served as a reminder that even in a small, safe town, terrible things can happen. But it also brought people together in a way that few other things could. The outpouring of support for John's family and the determination of the police to find the killer showed that when tragedy strikes, we can come together and overcome even the most difficult of circumstances. When we arrived at the scene, we found the victim lying on the ground with multiple stab wounds. We immediately secured the area and began collecting evidence. The investigation was extensive and involved collecting DNA samples, interviewing witnesses, and analyzing surveillance footage. The police soon identified a suspect and made an arrest. James Brown was charged with murder and taken into custody. His trial was highly publicized, and many people followed the case closely. The prosecution presented a strong case against Mr. Brown, but we argued that there wasn't enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was the killer. James Brown's trial was highly publicized, with many people in the community following it closely. The prosecution presented a strong case against Brown, arguing that his DNA was found at the crime scene and that he had a history of violence. The defense, however, argued that there wasn't enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was the killer. Throughout the trial, there were tense moments as witnesses were cross-examined and evidence was presented. The prosecution focused on painting Brown as a violent and unstable individual, presenting evidence of his previous criminal history and erratic behavior. The defense, on the other hand, attempted to poke holes in the prosecution's case, arguing that the DNA evidence was circumstantial and could have been contaminated. In the end, the jury deliberated for several days before coming to a decision. They found James Brown guilty of murder and sentenced him to life in prison without parole. The verdict was met with mixed reactions in the community. While some were relieved that justice had been served, others felt that Brown had been unfairly targeted and that there was still too much uncertainty surrounding the case. The aftermath of the trial was difficult for many people, especially John Smith's family and friends. While they were grateful for the resolution, they were still grappling with the trauma of losing someone they loved in such a violent way. The community rallied around them, offering support and condolences. Despite the difficult circumstances, the murder in the park ultimately brought the community together in a powerful way. It reminded people of the importance of looking out for one another and standing up for justice. While the scars of the tragedy will never fully heal, the community has shown a remarkable resilience in the face of adversity. The murder in the park remains a tragic reminder of the dangers that can lurk in even the most peaceful of places. It's a reminder to all of us to be vigilant and look out for one another.
On the 10th of March, 2023, a body was discovered in a park in the middle of the city.
The victim, 32-year-old John Smith, was found with multiple stab wounds to his chest. John was a well-known businessman in the city, and his death has left many people in shock. The police have launched a full-scale investigation and are urging anyone with any information to come forward. According to the police, John was last seen at a local bar with a group of friends. They left the bar together, and it's believed that John was attacked in the park shortly after. The police have released CCTV footage from the bar and are urging anyone who was in the bar that night to come forward. They believe that someone may have seen something that could help with the investigation. The investigation is still ongoing, and the police are following up on several leads. They're urging anyone with any information, no matter how small, to come forward and help them solve this case. It's important to remember that behind every crime is a victim, and in this case, John's family and friends are still grieving for him. We hope that the police will be able to bring whoever is responsible to justice and provide some closure for John's loved ones. Thank you for watching today's video. If you have any information about this case, please contact your local police department. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more updates on this and other stories. Stay safe and see you in the next video.